Putin gets chills down his spine, the secret arsenal of the Ukrainian armed forces is expanding and new aircraft are entering the Ukrainian military like on a conveyor belt. The first footage, Rafale fighter jets are preparing to take control of the skies over the enemy. The launch of missiles with a range of 300 kilometers is a total breakthrough. Gripen, Mirage and F-16 are now working together as a team. Russia is trying to hide its doomed fate. What other super powerful weapon is about to encircle the enemy? We'll tell you about it in just a moment.
France is strengthening Ukraine's defense, particularly in the areas of air defense and aviation. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that our country will be able to receive 100 Rafale F-4 aircraft, powerful French radars, 8 SAMP-T air defense systems, as well as 6 launchers. In addition, Ukrainians will receive 55 electric locomotives, which will provide extra support for our domestic infrastructure.
What was signed with the president is more of a permit for delivery, but with the company Dassault, contracts have been signed. This will be an actual contract for the delivery of aircraft. So we have a political decision, but a separate formal contract will need to spell out all the financial terms and conditions under which we will receive these aircraft.
It was stated that President Zelensky did not announce the full list of aid for security reasons. However, even the published list could create significant problems for the Russians.
The Rafale in its current version belongs to the heavy 4++ generation of military aircraft. If we look at the modern version of the Rafale, in terms of overall weight, the number of hard points which are used for mounting weapons and equipment, and the total combat load, it is quite comparable to the Russian Su-35 and Su-37 military aircraft. This means it matches the most modern Russian fighters. Rafales and Gripens are being equipped with Meteor missiles. This missile, which doesn't use a solid fuel engine but a ramjet, already has a range several times greater. Well, at first a range of 200 kilometers was announced, but now in principle the figure of 300 kilometers has been repeatedly stated in promotional materials. So this is a missile that it doesn't surpass the Russian R-37M missile in its characteristics, but it will be a constant weapon.
Also, starting from the summer of 2024, American F-16s have been carrying out combat missions in Ukraine. To strengthen our air defenses, our country intends to purchase Gripen fighter jets from Sweden. These aircraft can compete with the F-16s and not only them.
The F-16 and Mirage 2000 fighters that we have received. Currently, they are used for air defense missions about 70% of the time, while the Mirages are used almost exclusively 100% for air defense tasks.
Earlier, Zelensky and Macron signed a declaration of intent to cooperate in the field of Ukraine's acquisition of defense equipment.
Unfortunately, our financial capabilities as a country, a very peaceful country, are limited. We have been at war for 3.5 years. Our finances do not allow us to purchase aircraft. For now, we are only being given aircraft.
On the eve of his visit to France, Volodymyr Zelensky announced a historic agreement and a significant strengthening of Ukrainian aviation. In addition to France, Spain is also preparing an aid package for our country. At the moment, strengthening air defense is Ukraine's top priority. The armed forces of Ukraine did this urgently. At this moment, drones are determining the further course of the war. Ukrainian defenders are mastering new technologies. Combat birds deliver doses of retribution to the enemy non-stop, right into the heart of the front line. The Russians are going crazy and launching their own drones in response. It's a full-scale technology war. What trump cards is the Ukrainian army using right now, and when will the final move happen? Don't miss the details in the following report.
A UAV operator from the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade perfectly drops a grenade into a trench with Russian soldiers. One of them tries to throw out the explosive but doesn't make it in time. As a result of the successful drop, several occupiers were eliminated. This is what modern warfare looks like now. There are virtually no assaults or frontal attacks with equipment. Drones have put an end to positional warfare. An article with this very headline was published in the American outlet Politico.
Combat operations in Ukraine no longer resemble the trench warfare of World War I. Instead, drones have erased the continuous front line, creating a zone of destruction. As a result, a gray zone of chaos has formed, stretching about 20 kilometers from the front line, where drones hunt for soldiers. The wounded are left to die as evacuating them is extremely difficult, and delivering ammunition, food and water to the soldiers fighting there is practically impossible.
The sky over the gray zone is shrouded in smoke from the drones. The UAVs are equipped with thermal imagers, cameras, bombs and cannons. And some lie for hours on the roads, waiting for military vehicles to pass by. At the same time, there is a hunt for UAV pilots who are sitting dozens of kilometers away.
We have moved on to a war of drones against drones. Now drones can set up ambushes, intercept enemy logistics systems, and disrupt supplies. In addition, it has become more difficult to hold positions. If you are detected, all the weaponry in the area will immediately be directed at your destruction. Pavlo Polisa, Colonel of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Russian military public pages are quoting this article, but as always, in their own way. Here is one example of Russian propaganda, where it is written that Russian drones are not giving the Ukrainian armed forces a break, although in reality it's exactly the opposite.
Because of Russian drones, Ukrainian soldiers are forced to stay at their positions for a week. The drones make evacuation, rotation, and the delivery of ammunition and supplies extremely dangerous.
Information from open sources shows that it is the Russian army that abandons its wounded soldiers instead of evacuating them. Today, Russia is also trying not to fall behind in the production of various strike UAVs. Thus, in the frontline zones, the enemy has begun using a new type of Iranian drone, the Shahed 101. It has a warhead weighing 8 to 9 kilograms and a flight range of several hundred kilometers. For now, the production of this UAV is paying off for the occupiers. It has not yet been possible to localize its production in Russia. The UAV was manufactured in Iran in 2024, but it's only a matter of time. The Russians learned quickly from their
mistakes were made along the way. Still, they are a well-organized group, and their scientific work is methodical and effective. In the end, they managed to suppress and break, that persistent internal resistance, those efforts from within to oppose the war. There were attempts by some individuals or groups to resist or challenge the direction things were heading, but through careful planning and determination, these efforts were gradually overcome and unity was maintained. That's why they have their own developments, their system works, they were preparing for war, they improved the Shaheds, and they made Lancets based on Israeli drones.
drones have become so effective that they've even pushed artillery away from the front line and made it impossible to use armored vehicles to supply the troops.
Drones have become useful for delivery and evacuation, combat reconnaissance, and remote mining. Tasks that were previously usually carried out by people in war.
Despite different resource capabilities, Ukraine now has parity with Russia in drones and in some areas even an advantage. But the ongoing development and advancement of this crucial military component does not stop for even a single minute. It is always urgent, and progress continues relentlessly.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
An alert in Poland. Russia is paving the way straight to Warsaw. The eastern flank collapsed in an instant. Putin gives a secret order. The Polish army is on alert. 200,000 soldiers take up arms. NATO at this moment has to make an important decision. Cold War 2.0. Whose side will prevail? We'll find out in just a moment.
There's no need to make things up and base your opinion of Russia on these inventions. There's no need to form the image of an enemy out of Russia. We made up the idea that Russia wants to attack NATO. Are you completely out of your mind or what? As dumb as this table. Who came up with this? This is nonsense, you understand? Utter rubbish.
The Kremlin has begun preparations for war against Poland.
We have found ourselves closer to open conflict than at any time since World War II.
This is a pre-war situation. The General Staff has announced that an attack is being prepared.
The aggressor has begun preparations for war. He is creating an environment, one that is meant to undermine public trust in the government, the army, and the police in order to set the stage for potential aggression on Polish territory.
The chief of the General Staff of Poland stated that recently the number of acts of sabotage and large-scale cyber attacks in the country has increased significantly. These events may indicate that Russia is creating conditions to destabilize the situation and weaken the state from within. One of the most recent such incidents was an explosion on the Warsaw-Lublin railway line.
Analyzing all the events taking place in Poland and Europe, it can be said that all the traces lead east to Muscovy.
The Polish authorities believe that this episode and other similar ones bear the hallmarks of pre-planned operations that may be linked to the activities of foreign intelligence.
The sabotage of the railway line on the Warsaw-Lublin route is an unprecedented act of subversion aimed directly against the security of the Polish state and its civilian population. We will catch those responsible, whoever they may be.
2 months earlier, about 20 Russian drones entered Polish territory en masse for the first time. Poland's security services stated that the threat from the drones was more serious than the authorities had believed.
The claim that these were merely cardboard and paper objects is not entirely true.
The Polish leadership does not hide the fact that it is preparing for a direct confrontation.
We can respond to these threats either symmetrically or asymmetrically. We have the full arsenal of tools at our disposal.
Military analyst and former SBU officer Ivan Stupak is convinced that the Kremlin is already waging a hybrid war against Europe. The only question is when it will escalate into an open conflict.
For the Russian Federation, everything it is doing is already a war, just by completely different means. Yes, it's asymmetric, not linear, hybrid, you can call it whatever you want, but this war is already underway.
Poland's strategic location between the Kaliningrad region and Belarus makes it one of the key countries for the security of all of NATO. And Warsaw itself plays an important role in ensuring the defense of the eastern flank. In the future, the defense of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania will directly depend on the ability of Polish forces to respond promptly to potential threats.
Everything depends on our position, whether we can deter the enemy or encourage them to aggression.
While most European countries spent many years discussing the potential threat from Russia, Poland was carrying out systematic and purposeful preparations. Over the past decade, Warsaw has significantly strengthened its military potential, and the buildup of its defense capabilities began immediately after Russia's annexation of Crimea.
While other countries waited to see who would make the first move, Poland acted.
In 2024, Poland's defense budget increased to 4.7% of GDP. This is the highest figure among all NATO member states. The modernization of military equipment and the increase in troop numbers to over 200,000 make the Polish army one of the largest in Europe. In addition, Poland has become one of the largest purchasers of weapons from the United States. The country has invested about $50 billion.
Without the United States, there is no alliance. We need to spend more on defense not to replace the Americans in Europe, but to keep them here.
The Polish people are tired of the war that is going on in the neighboring country. And among them, there is a worsening attitude toward Ukrainians. The Polish Minister of Defense stated that people do not see the main enemy, and those who incite people against Ukraine are acting against Poland. This is
something that should be valued and respected, not used to incite people against Ukrainians in Poland or to stir up anti-German sentiment.
The chief of the Polish General Staff called for the creation of a Cold War 2.0. Invest massively in defense and make it clear to Moscow that any attack on NATO will be met with a decisive response. Now, however, the future of European countries depends on NATO's readiness for...
That wraps up our discussion on defense. In the meantime, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Your support means a lot to us and helps us continue creating content like this. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we hope you found the information useful. See you next time and have a great day.